Imagine this. You just got off of work and you're heading home. You walk inside your house to find out a man has murdered half of your family. The man gets caught and his trial comes up and it's making national news because you're pushing for him to receive the death penalty. However, you live in a state that has abolished the death penalty, so this man only ends up getting a couple years in prison. While everybody thinks he should receive death, it's not possible because the penalty has been abolished. So I'm here today to persuade that the death penalty is a deserved punishment in cases. My knowledge of this comes from extensive research on capital punishment and its effects, and I will persuade you by covering the people who have received it, the ways it deters crime, it appeases victims and society, and it is humane and painless. To begin, let's take a look at people who have received it. A major case I found in the argument of the death penalty is of Genny Rojas, whose aunt and uncle tortured and murdered her. They later went on to receive the death penalty, and I would say they deserved it from what they did to their niece. Charles Stimson, who is an expert in national security and homeland security and crime control, used Genny Rojas' case as an example in his 2019 article titled "The Death Penalty is Appropriate." In 2021, the Las Vegas Review-Journal did a report about people on death row in Nevada, one of which is Zane Floyd, who walked into an Albertsons with a shotgun and killed four people. I would say he deserved the death penalty. Tamir Hamilton, who tortured and killed a 16-year-old girl, I would also say deserves death penalty. A later report was done by Victor Jacques, who has his bachelor's and he's a staff sergeant in the National Guard. When asked about the actions of the death penalty, he replied, "The only actions that are inhumane and barbaric with the death penalty are the exceptionally heinous crimes committed by the criminals." Now, to my second point, if you're aware that if you do something bad, you're gonna get punished, would you still do it? Probably not. This is the same with the death penalty. If a criminal knows they're going to receive death from doing a terrible crime, then they're less likely to commit that crime. In an article done by the National Academies Press, they quoted, "Because the death penalty increases the price of murder, there will be less of it." And according to the Death Penalty Information Center, since 1976, there's been 1,543 executions. Each one of these are examples to future criminals on why they shouldn't commit terrible crimes. And if the death penalty is to be deemed illegal, then criminals won't see a punishment for doing bad crimes, so they're gonna keep on committing them. The death penalty can also act as a form of closure to victims, their families, and to the public. An example of this I found is Fred Romano, who in 1987 found his daughter beaten, tortured, mutilated, and dead. The killer was later caught and was identified as Stephen Oken, who killed 2 other women other than Fred's daughter. When asked about Stephen Oken getting the death penalty, Fred said, "It's not revenge, it's justice." His wife Vicky agreed, saying, "Revenge would be killing them herself. The death penalty is the law." Fred was also asked about life without parole, and his response was, "My problem is that 10 years from now, some other idiot will come along and say life is too harsh. Then they'll pass a bill granting them parole, and we'll have a bunch of murderers walking the streets." In 2015, the FBI reported nearly 15,700 homicides nationwide, and a 2007 study suggested that for every homicide victim, 6 to 10 family members are indirectly victimized. That figure excludes the many friends, colleagues, neighbors, and other people who also suffer when a person knows is murdered. Over time, there has been many improvements to how the execution is carried out, from the original hanging to a fire squad to the now most commonly used lethal injection. The Death Penalty Information Center has a really in-depth explanation of how the executions work. The process begins with the inmate being put to sleep. It's done by injecting them with sodium thiopental, which is an anesthetic. Their muscles are then paralyzed and their breathing is stopped by pancuronium bromide, another anesthetic. And finally, potassium chloride stops their heart and their breathing. Death results from anesthetic or overdose and cardiac arrest and respiratory arrest while the person is unconscious, so it's painless. The Death Penalty Information Center later states that the 8th Amendment does not guarantee a prisoner a painless death, yet we have made countless improvements to the method of execution to find the quickest and least painful way, even though it's not guaranteed. In closing, it is my hope that based on the evidence provided regarding the people convicted and put on death row, the crime deterrence, closure and justice provided by the death penalty, and the quick and painless method used, that I have persuaded you that the death penalty is a rightful punishment and that you understand the positive effects that comes with the death penalty. Thank you.